In the spring of 2020, the GP60M project began. It went from a pipe dream into the start of reality. First time I saw the cab, oh my goodness, this is real. It was awesome. But there's been much trial and error and a lot of patience. In 2023, when I first took over the parts of the Locomotive and I started doing videos and sharing my journey with you, there's been a lot of trial and error. And especially when it comes to the graphics. This is a lot of trial and error represented here. How was I going to make this happen? When was the engine actually going to have identity? Well, we've achieved that milestone. What do I mean? As I always say, let's talk about it. Coming up next on the Warbones channel. Hello everyone, and welcome to yet another video podcast here on the Warbones channel. If you don't know me and you're unfamiliar with this channel, my name is Eric. I'm a locomotive engineer for a U.S. Class 1 railroad by profession, an avid model railroader, and just a lifelong rail enthusiast. Well, today is video number 28 of the series, Building a 1-inch scale Santa Fe GP60M locomotive. Now, I actually just got in early this morning from a trip, and during the time I was gone, I had a lot of things to think about and how I was going to attack the next step, which is the graphics. Now, for the first time, I can say the Locomotive actually has an identity. I have decided that the Locomotive will be numbered the ATSF 123. Now, you might be thinking like, well, what's the significance of 123? Did you just pick some random 1, 2, 3 chronological order number, or does it have a specific meaning? Well, the Santa Fe GP60M locomotives were numbered in the 100 series. Now, the 23 is significant because in video 23, I introduced the fact that my son, daughter, and myself all share the 23rd day of our birth months. My daughter on January 23rd, my son on June 23rd, and myself on September 23rd. Plus, video 23 was the maiden run, where my kids actually got to run Dad's locomotive. This dream actually started to come alive, and they got to be a big part of that. So, where does the 123 come into play? Well, a gentleman by the name of Steve, who is from Northern California, is a retired Santa Fe locomotive engineer. Now, as a matter of fact, one of the interesting stories was when I told a couple videos back about my experience of seeing the very first two GP60Ms coming through Galesburg, Illinois, he heard me say that and actually reached out to me and said, yeah, you know, I actually had that train when it got to California, and I actually operated those two locomotives on that train. And I'm thinking, wow, how cool is that? You know, here was a guy who was in the prime of his career, and I was a 15-year-old kid just in awe, wanting to be a railroader. And then the great thing about the internet, when used properly, is all of a sudden, wow, we find out how, in a roundabout way, we actually kind of cross paths. And it was so exciting, but anyway, the significance of talking about Steve in this is that he said, with all of these 23s, you know, and that you have in common with your kids and the project and everything, maybe you ought to number it 123. And I'm like, that sounds like a great idea. Initially, I thought about numbering it 117 because my father, when he was still alive, and of course, shortly after the GP60Ms were being delivered, I told him, Dad, these engines are so cool. We got to go out. You've got to see these. So we went out to a location called Yost. It's a control point on the Santa Fe main line in a place called East Galesburg, Illinois. And it was an open area, and we went out there. We had watched trains there before, and we went out there, and we saw train 199, which was the hottest train on the Santa Fe, Chicago to Richmond, California. And we saw the 117 leading two other GP60Ms just smoking west. And I thought, what a tribute to my dad. However, I do have a model of the 117, an HO scale, a brass model that I bought way back in the early 90s. And much to the dismay of my mom and dad, who were surprised and not too impressed that I had spent $300 on a locomotive, but it was my first railroad job, you could say, because I was actually working for Amtrak at the time as a dining car waiter. So I was going from Chicago to California, Seattle, New Orleans, New York, Denver, Minneapolis, all over the place. For an 18-year-old kid who got this as a summer job and later kind of did it off and on during my college years, what an opportunity. So awesome. But I bought this locomotive, and it took a while for me to get it painted, but it did get painted by a late friend of mine named Kevin Buck, who was from La Plata, Missouri. He actually painted it up as the 117, so I do have a model of the 117. My daughter thought it should have been 117, but the more I thought about it, I have a model of the 117, and because of the fact that my kids have watched this locomotive go from a dream to becoming reality, they actually got to test run it for the first time under its own power. This is a family affair. It needs to be the 123. So, when it came to making graphics for this locomotive, I wasn't really sure what to do. Now, I obtained a decal sheet and blew it up into a file thinking that I could use these GP60M graphics for what I needed to do. Well, as I said in the opening monologue, lots of trial and error that just didn't go anywhere. Thankfully, a good friend of mine, Kevin P., who was one of my colleagues until his health declined and he had to leave the railroad and eventually go into a nursing home. We were talking one day or texting, and I was mentioning how I was kind of at a crossroads for what to do with the graphics. I said, well, maybe you should talk to my grandson, August, who is a graphic arts designer, and maybe he could help you out. So I reached out to August and said, hey, here's what I'm trying to do. And he did a bang-up job in coming through for me and making some graphics that I'm able to work with. The graphics are actually going to be a combination of painted and vinyl. Now, going back a little bit, my wife and I, though we're separated, actually changed the game for me in a lot of this. One day, she said, hey, I want to buy a Cricut machine. What's a Cricut machine? I'm thinking, oh, great, just going to be some expensive thing that we're going to be spending money on. Because if we had one of these Cricut machines, I could actually help you in fabricating decals for your models that you're building. Oh, it's kind of like the Scooby-Doo. Oh, okay, I'm listening. And she explained to me how it worked, even though I still didn't understand it, until I said, all right, well, go ahead and do it. And she bought it, And she showed me how things were cut out on vinyl. And I'm like, this is fabulous. And I remember when we got the graphics made for a Grand Trunk boxcar, which was actually the first one that I successfully finished, thinking this is great. They were white vinyl decals that we made, which there's no way in the world that I would have been able to print them off, because at the time I'm still thinking I need water slide decals. And that just was not going to work. With the files that August made for me, I'm actually able to put them into the Cricut machine and make vinyl. So the stripes are going to be vinyl that separate the red and silver. The number on the side of the cab, on each side, the cigar band on the nose is all going to be vinyl. I don't have to worry about going to a print shop and hoping that what they print out for me is going to work, or that when I apply it to the Locomotive, it's actually going to stick. The vinyl is great because all I have to do is purchase the paper, and the machine will cut it out. Once the machine cuts it out, it's perfect. And because I'm going to use the same paper for everything, I don't have to worry about, oh, well, this yellow is inconsistent with that, or this and that. I don't have to worry about that. It's all the same thing. So this is going to get slightly involved, but I want to give you the lengthy explanation because, first of all, as I always open up with, welcome to yet another video podcast. So I talk and explain about these things. And why do I do this? Because when I was in the midst of starting this project, I was looking for videos for encouragement. How do I do this? I want to learn something new. How can I apply this to my project? And there was really nothing out there. If I did see anything in 1-inch scale or even 1.5 inches, it's something that was already done, and it's a video of somebody actually running a locomotive or visiting a railroad and taking videos of said locomotives going by. I rarely saw a GP60M until I saw a gentleman's GP60M guy named Danny. I remember seeing pictures of his locomotive and like, wow, I want to see everything I can about this locomotive. I've never seen somebody else have a GP60M in large scale. And awesomely, I got to actually meet him a couple of years ago and actually got to see the actual locomotive in person and talk to him and share ideas. So this is why I do this, is that I like to share this stuff. And besides the entertainment, it's a learning thing for everybody, including myself. And I'm just sharing what I learned. The things that I'm about to do can be boring and dry. You know, unless you're nerding out like I am on this project, this is getting really exciting for me because I'm taking measurements in order to start making paint masks and make graphics. So for me, actually physically having my hands in this is exciting. But for you as the viewer, I gotta make this a little bit more exciting other than just, I'm measuring this, I'm doing that, yep, I'm measuring this. Okay, that has its place and time. But you know what? We're gonna have some fun with this. Let's do an 80s style montage.
Don't you to stay, girl. Are they dangerous? Dealing with someone else. Will you take the risk? Will you take the risk? Baby, I'm out there dangerous. I'm dangerous. When love hits you right between the eyes, you learn that love was in disguise. Surprise. Are they dangerous? Are you sure you wanna take me home? Are they dangerous? Give me dealing in the danger. Will you take the risk? Baby, 'cause I'm armed and dangerous.
And keeping up with the 80s theme, this is totally rad, dude. I have got some graphics. Now, it took me a little bit because I had a couple mistakes and had to leave the house, go get some more supplies and everything, but everything finally came out. And I had to use some clips from the movie The Naked Gun because, well, that's about how I felt dancing around, except Eric can't do the splits anymore. Funny story, my buddy Matt got married several years ago in Kansas City, and I went to the wedding. I was part of the wedding, and went through the ceremony, and we're at the wedding reception, and there was a great song playing. Can't remember what it was, but all I know is I thought, I'm feeling good. I'm going to go down and do the splits. Haven't done them in years. Didn't even stretch. But I went down and did the splits. I got down. Uh-oh. I can't get up. So the father of the bride had to come and help me up. He felt bad for me. But that's when I realized I'm not a young man anymore. I'm middle-aged. We can't do this anymore. So no more splits for me. But thank you, Leslie Nielsen, in the Naked Gun movie. What I want to do now is show how I also made the paint masks for the war bonnet curves. And I got to give a shout out to my friend Randy from Randy's Roundhouse in Lincoln, Nebraska, who supplied me with the 80,000th styrene that I needed in order to create the masks. So what I did was took the file that I had on my computer and made a few crops here and there just so I could get what I needed. So what we have here is the mask for the fireman's side of the locomotive, as well as the war bonnet curve for the side of the cab. And then we also have the war bonnet curve and how it kind of jogs a little bit in order to go underneath the dynamic brake section. So I basically took those, originally printed those out in order to get an idea of what I needed size-wise that was going to properly fit on the locomotive. So basically what you're going to see is me taping these items, these graphics, which it's just paper out of my printer, taping it to some 80,000th styrene, and then actually using my bandsaw to make some cuts. And I took them to my table sander and straightened everything up. So those are going to be the templates. So, in keeping with our 80s theme, let's go back in time. sure that many of you watching are from the era where you remember the old sitcom Home Improvement. So I'm going to be Tim the Toolman Taylor for a little bit here. I really appreciate the fact that so many of you have followed me from the beginning, and I really appreciate all of you who have come in after, or maybe this is your first time looking at what I'm doing. It's been a lot of fun, but as I've also said many times, I'm just a guy who's trying to figure this out as I go along. I don't know what I'm doing, but I've been able to figure it out, and we've gotten this far. I've had a lot of wonderful and encouraging comments in the comment section, and I truly mean that from the bottom of my heart. Just to hear some of the joy that some of you have expressed to me just really encourages me tremendously, and I truly appreciate that. However, I guess I must be somebody because I've had the haters. And I thought, well, should I say anything about this or should I not? But you know what? I've always been real with you guys. So the thing is that I try to tell my kids about humility, so I'm going to say this in a humble way. I had an individual a couple videos back tell me that my music that I used in one of my videos hurt his ears, and that I needed to take lessons about how to paint. Okay, well, I don't know. Last time I checked, this was my channel. Number one. So I can play anything I want. I can say anything I want. I can show you anything I want. I can do anything I want, even if it's wrong. But the one thing that I'm not here to say this because I'm trying to gripe, which I guess I am in a little bit, but I do admit that some of the things I do maybe aren't the same. I don't use the same techniques as somebody who actually does this for a living and gets paid to do this would do. Now, people asked me in the very beginning, who's going to paint it for you? Well, I did actually have a gentleman lined up, so I thought, and he thought, wow, showed him pictures of an actual GP60M, and wow, that's really cool, and oh man, I would love to be a part of that project. So I sent him pictures of the actual model, and sent him pictures of myself, and this is, who I am, this is what I'm trying to do. And then all of a sudden, boom, silence. The guy all of a sudden ghosted me. And I was a little PO'd about it at first. Like, really, dude? Like, what did I do to you? What, do I look ugly? You not like me? Or I don't know. Never did anything or said anything disrespectful to the man. In fact, we had a phone conversation for probably about 45 minutes when we initially talked, and I told him what I wanted to do. But you know what? I'm not here to even complain about that. But what I'm actually here to say is that there are times when you plan something on a project and it doesn't really go the way you want it to go, or somebody ghosts you, or somebody changes their mind, or you try to reach out to somebody and say, hey, can you help me do this? Because when I first started this, there's a lot of welding that had to take place after I actually got the Locomotive in my possession. And I'm like, okay, well, I know this friend of mine welds, or I know this guy welds, and I'm trying to line up people to help me out. But eventually, everything worked out. I mean, actually, one of my very good friends who lives a couple blocks away from me, I knew he was a woodworker and actually studied that in college. But all of a sudden, I said, hey, I need to find somebody to weld something for me. Oh, I know how to weld. Really? I thought you just did woodwork. Dude, I have more knowledge about welding than I do woodwork, and I'm very knowledgeable about both. And well, here we go. So he's the one, Justin, who actually helped me weld the frame to the underside of the deck. And I didn't foresee that coming. And he also welded the end sheets on for me. So it's just really cool because sometimes when you plan something or you don't even know where you're going with this, and then all of a sudden, maybe the person that you did reach out to ends up blowing you off and, oh, well, hey, can you weld this for me? Well, yeah. And then it's like, if you don't want to do it, just go tell me to pound sand, But then I look at it, and instead of being mad about those things, I just use it to say, like, you know what, I'm going to keep going. Because you don't want to be a part of this project. You're not meant to be a part of this project. And we're going to keep on going. So I tell you what, this is definitely a product of several really good friends and good people that were knowledgeable to help me get this far. So I'm really excited, even if I've done some things wrong, according to some viewers. It's my project, and I'm happy with the way it is. It may not be perfect. Is any project ever perfect? No, but am I happy with what's here? Am I really making progress? I sure am. I'm feeling really good right now because even though this video wasn't quite as exciting as the last one where my kiddos were here and we were having banter and bloopers and we went on a couple trips and just did some things, that was a lot of fun. But the reality is you're here because of this GP60M project. So it was time for me to get back to work. But did I feel like I kicked some butt and took some names? Absolutely. I know that I do plenty of talking because I am a storyteller as well, as I either just tell a good story or I'm telling a story as I'm actually performing a task. And I know some of the haters don't like that, but once again, as I said in my public service announcement, it's my channel. However, being a storyteller isn't always bad because do you know who Rupert Holmes is? Maybe you're like, I don't know who that is. And maybe some of you do. But Rupert Holmes was, well, actually, he's still alive. But he's a great storyteller. But if you don't know who Rupert Holmes is by name, maybe this little sound will cue you off.
If you like pina coladas and getting caught in the rain, if you're not into yoga, if you have half a brain, if you like making love at midnight in the dunes on the Cape, then I'm the love that you've looked for. Write to me and escape.
Now, are you feeling good too? I know I am. Oh yes, the good old Pina Colada song. Oh yes, now I can't think straight. Now I'm just feeling too good. You know what? It was fascinating to hear how he came up with that song. But you know what? If me nerding out on this project and everything puts me in the same class as a storyteller and a guy nerding out with his music like that, I'm in great company. So, life is good. We're going to end the video here, but I hope I've given you some laughs and have given you some entertainment. And if you've enjoyed this content and you're not subscribed and you're new to this channel, I just invite you to hit that like and subscribe button. You know what? I do this because it's fun. I love making this video podcast journal of this project because I'm sure someday I'll even go back and look at my own videos and try to figure out, if I did something else, how did I do that before? And that's how I did it. But it also gives my kids a little something to remember me by. Hopefully I'm still here for a long, long time. But anyway, we're going to keep having fun. Next video, let's get this thing taped off and let's start spraying some silver. Until then, I hope you guys have a blessed day. It's been fun. We're going to keep it going. And in the words of the late, great Walter Cronkite, that's the way it is. And as I always say, keep the shiny side up.